societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. Excuse me. This is UCY.tv with the Solvinur event. I'm your host, Wouter Hendricks, coming to you from Holland. It's the 23rd of July 2016. 4 p.m. in the Netherlands. Alright. Talking to people in the chat a little. Okay. Yeah, because it's been strange. Did my intro even play then? Because I didn't hear anything. It was kind of strange. Anyway. And the UCY .tv, you can find a chat link. People are already there. Good morning, Captain Gringo, Damn Defiant, Grump44, Hopper, Logan, Matty Clues, Otto, me, and Vince, and two Anons. This is called the Solvinur event, in case you haven't heard me say this before. The word Solvinur is two words. Sol, which means son, and friend for Vinur. Okay. Something wrong with the timing then. Anyway, I put those two words together from two Icelandic horses. Solbrandr, which means burned by the sun, and Snævinur, which means friend of snow, or snow friend. Those are Icelandic names. I found that some of the Icelandic words, and that's only the few that I heard, do sound a bit like Dutch, actually. You know, there's also... I heard this from another friend who claimed that the Dutch language was probably far older than we've been told, and that another friend, so it's a different source, the owner of these Icelandic horses, told me that Icelandic hasn't changed for over 1,000 years. And it's a language that hasn't changed. And so that's significant, because language is always used to control people. I used to hammer on that in the past a lot. But it's just true. Language is used to control people. It begins with the grammar stage. You are only given certain pieces of grammar, and they know that the next stage is logic, so they foresee you using your logic on the grammar given, and that will bring you to their desired conclusion, and therefore your third step, rhetoric, or in other words, action, will be based on information that has been fed to you. Do you understand how language is used to control you? It's by using how the mind works and your own intelligence against you. Grammar, logic, rhetoric, that's how your mind works. The thinking part, that is. And, I haven't given this definition since a long time, so maybe I should. Whenever I use the word mind, it's thinking, feeling, and wanting. It's the best explanation so far, the simplest that I've seen. And so, mind control, that's what it's about. Language is mind control. That's why I was so suspicious, remember, when non-violent communication came into view. And we had a guest from Choice Conversation Zone. We should have him back on, he's a nice guy. To talk about non-violent communication, and I think I understood more or less what he said. And it's like, just be nice in your when you choose how you choose your words, and also about an attitude that you have when encountering other people. All right, so that's like. I would call that like fiddling within the system. It's adjusting yourself to using language in a specific way, right? But that doesn't take away the fact that words and ideas that are the basis for these words are fed to us. This lighter appears to be faulty. I found it one of the most important topics. I also, my memory, it fails at age where you start to learn language. Yeah, it's, I think it's, last I heard anyway, it's still kind of a mystery how a baby grows up supposedly knowing nothing, right? I think we can safely assume that there's no built-in language like you would have with a computer, for instance. Right? A computer, by the way, is also an excellent analogy for how language is used to control. Yes, Christopher Stefanik. We should have him back on. Just because he's a nice guy. And so, where was I? Language. My coffee. That it's based upon the basic grammar, the building blocks, so to speak, that we are given. We don't know what they've left out. We've come across some, across the years now that the attention has shifted when it comes to looking for sources. So across the years, things have come up like the trivium, and I would suggest checking out Kevin Cole, who did a lot of investigating regarding the origins of this. And again, it seems to have to do with controlling of people. Right, so that's what I said long ago, but I think it bears repeating. that those 7 liberal arts and all, they divide further into, for instance, fine arts, and those are just skills. You know, the word art and skill tie back to the same Latin word, and that's the same as the creating a caste system. It's exactly the same. Giving people certain skills, and one of the arguments I've heard for bringing in the Industrial Revolution, right? So notice that I said bringing in the Industrial Revolution, that it's not something that came on its own for no apparent reason, right? That it was because the skilled people found out that they had a certain degree of power, and they wanted the machines to take away that power. That's one argument I've heard. But still, teaching people skills is like telling people this is what you're gonna do, right? Which is totally against natural law. Nobody can tell anybody what to do. It's insane. At least to me, people should be free. Simple as that. But we're forced into this schooling system, telling you what to do, telling you what to think instead of learning you how to think. And then, even then, you know, if you know how to think, your language limits you. That's why I said language is the prison within which we can express ourselves. I've had, during my research over the years, feelings where there are no words for, you know? The language doesn't suffice because of the connections that you see. And you're like, there's no words, right? Let's see. Hey, JJ. Welcome. How you doing, buddy? Blah, blah. If you want to join the radio and you have Skype, then that's possible. Just contact me at Skype. Solvinur, Solvinur. And that's, there's only one on Skype, so easy to find. Also check out the website Real Liberty Media. They have nice, at the top, select the channel to start, and there's all kinds of things there, like Behind the Woodshed, for instance. UCY is there. Real Liberty Media News Show. Check it out. For other so-called alternative channels, in the past I was very much more negative about these alternative shows. I don't remember what website it was, but there was a whole list of them. And if you read the comments beneath all of these so-called alternative media, it was all about left-right paradigm. So, you know, they haven't even made one of the first steps in the process of waking up, you know, as it is called. Right? Pinch through the whole left-right paradigm bullshit. Two wings of the same bird, right? We even use the same word in Dutch. They also call it wing. Right wing, left wing. Left, right. Yeah. So, if you haven't even, got past that point, how dare you call yourself alternative media, right? That's why I said this should be called underground radio. It's just because, as a Dutch person, the term underground in the Netherlands refers to the Dutch resistance in the Second World War. That's kind of what I feel like. Right? There's a war out there, as Otto reminded me of the existence of this guy called AJ. Yeah. I don't like him at all. I've seen a couple of videos of him where he's acting very strange. Annoying other people who are also demonstrating. Purposely disturbing other people demonstrating. Alright? So, when you do that, you're an asshole. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But yeah, there is a war on. Yeah, I think so. And so this war is not, like in the Dutch history lessons we got told how we used to chain people up and to keep them from escaping, right? So no, they've refined their control methods by controlling the mind. So it's very important that you create your own worldview, for that matter, because your worldview has been made up by all the data that has been provided, and a lot of these building blocks, this data is contradicting itself, or I should say contradictory, not contradicting itself. And so there's a lot of thinking to do, and a lot of so-called players in history, like politicians, turn out to be puppets. They don't have the real power. They are just what you would call an outer circle. They are there for taking the heat also, for instance. So that the people behind the scene, the inner circle, the shadow government, can stay in power, and their puppets take the heat for them. I think that's why people like Obama, for instance, in the beginning his speech was perfect, right? His rhetoric was just insanely good. And the same goes for Bush, by the way. I've seen him just before he was president also. Speech was perfect. He came across as intelligent, right? Nothing wrong. And then for some reason, they start stumbling over their words. Both of them, Bush and Obama, right? You think that's real? There's no way that that's real, right? He's playing that. He's told to stumble over his words. They are told to act like idiots. Because they're not. This guy's a lawyer. There's nothing wrong with this rhetoric. Just look at the earlier videos of him. So those are the kind of clues that lead you to conclude that there's something behind all of this. And so those are one step, right, in the process of waking up. I've compared in the past the Eastern philosophy with waking up. In Eastern philosophy they also say that people are living in illusion. Just ask any Indian, and I mean people from India. They will tell you, you're living in illusion. They call it Maya, I'll type it in the chat in case you want to look that word up. And they say this is a kind of energy, and it's engulfing everybody. And there's no way to, supposedly, to escape it. And if you look at the word-for-word translation for Maya, it's illusion. And that's what most people are under. They call this, in Indian philosophy, the age of Kali Yuga, which is the age of deceit. Right? A lot of lies going on. Although these philosophers have a different definition of lying than we do here. They say everybody lies, and therefore it's all an illusion. Right? So, and as opposed to this illusory state, they are working towards a state called self-realized. And that's a very ambiguous term. I think the word ambiguous is correct here. Self-realized. And I can think of only one. I said in the past that also. That was, and if he ever even existed, that would have been Jesus. Right? That's an example of a self-realized living being. Maybe the Indians would use the word jiva or atma. These are all terms supposedly pointing at a totally different kind of energy. This has nothing to do with matter, or earth, or water, or fire. And they suppose a whole other world out there, right? To them, everything, quote unquote, everything is made up of 3/4 of absolute world, which is invisible to us because we are living in a material world and we have material eyes and material equipment, sensing equipment, meters and gogs and stuff like that. And they cannot ever measure this other world because the two energies are so different from each other. One is of a static state, that will be the absolute world, and the other is of a changing state. Right? Everything that happens here in the material world involves change. And because it involves change, they say it isn't real. Because one thing, it's a seed, one time it's a seed, and the next time it's a tree. Therefore, you can't say what it is, because it just keeps on changing. You can't say what it is, because of the change. That's their philosophy. Therefore, it doesn't exist for them, for some reason, which I don't understand, by the way. I don't agree with their philosophy. However, there are points in their philosophy which are hard to deny. For instance, they claim that because of this illusion, this Maya that we live under, we are identifying ourselves with our body. I don't know what word they use for that in Sanskrit, but I got it all explained in English for the most part. Right? So one of the consequences of being under the influence of this force called Maya, we identify with our bodies, and they claim that that's a mistake. And unfortunately, or maybe not so unfortunate, I must agree. You are not your body. That seems pretty obvious. Right? You own your body. This is your body. These are your hands, your eyes, your feet, and so on and so on. It's all yours. You're the owner. You're not what you own, right? If you drive in a car, you don't say, I'm a car, right? And so same goes for mind. That's also something, that's a tool that you can use. Your mind is a tool. It's a very sophisticated tool. Your feelings, your emotions, they help you in case you are in a difficult decision. There is a... now I'm stepping a little bit into the dark here. I'm going to make a claim that's maybe, maybe invalid, but there's an inner, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it's in your consciousness, I guess. Your consciousness has a moral code, so to speak. Right? Most of us are not psychopaths. We have a moral compass inside. Right? So that's part of your mind. Right? It's a useful tool for guiding your actions. But you're not that. That's just a tool. So what are you then? Right? So that question seems to be very difficult to answer, especially if you are like me, coming from a materialistic point of view. All right. There's a guy at my work. He loves to talk about evolution. Right? And so this is a difficult topic for me to talk about. Lots of people think that evolution and God are two things that don't go together. They don't mix, right? If you're a Darwinist, then you must be an atheist. I think that's wrong. I don't see why God would not create a universe in which prebiotic life, like that's DNA, it's also known as prebiotic organism, that's right, prebiotic organism. It's a DNA strand without a cell wall. Right? So I don't see why God would create such an environment where life can start to flourish. What's the problem here, right? So I don't see a battle going on between evolution and religion in that sense. There doesn't have to be. And that whole question, where does humankind come from? It's very difficult. Because if you are going to say, well, it came from the first cell, the first living cell in the soup of the earth, right? That's what they told us at school. Then you're going to have to ask, okay, well, where did that earth come from? Well, it came from the sun, or it came from... it actually probably did come from the sun. Anyway, the sun has a very big part to play in the formation of planets, gravitational pull. So, then you ask, well, where did that come from? And you have to get into the whole story if you want to go back and find the source, right? You want to talk about where does man come from, you have to go back all the way to the source as far back as you can go. So you would have to start to answer the question, where does the universe come from? And that may be a problem, because you're going to go to infinite regress. Well, yeah, God created the earth. Well, who created God? Yeah, well, God always existed. Right? That's the answer that you get then to avoid the infinite regress. Well, if you say God always existed, why not the universe always existed? Why do we have to have this God in between there? Why can't we say, well, we'll just stop at explaining where the universe came from and pose that it has always existed? We don't agree with a creation of the universe. You could pose that. Blah, blah. There were some Greeks that thought like that too. It's to avoid the infinite regress. There must be some point at which you say, well, it has always existed. Otherwise you're building turtles on turtles in the Chinese mythology. Turtles all the way down. Blah blah. Let's roll a ciggy here. Protocell. Somebody pasted. That's what I was talking about, right? A protocell is a self-organized, endogenously ordered, spherical collection of lipids proposed as a stepping stone to the origin of life. The central question in evolution is how simple protocells first arose and how they could differ in reproductive output, thus enabling the accumulation of novel biological emergences over time, right? i.e. biological evolution, right? That's the story we get told. Although a functional protocell has not yet been achieved in a laboratory setting, the goal to understand the process appears well within reach. Interesting. Yeah. So, but there seems to be also a step before that. I think they call it probiotic organism. No, that's probably not it. Probiotic. Probiotics are microorganisms that are believed to provide health benefits when consumed. No, this is not what I mean. Blah blah blah. Nou ja, doesn't matter really. Zie, die kan ook weg. So, not many people in the chat room today. It's quiet. Prebiotic evolutionary advantage of transferring genetic information from RNA to DNA. Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, just that fact alone. Yeah, prebiotic. Yeah. But just that fact alone, that, there's these building blocks in this so-called soup, and they fit together somehow, and poof, you got DNA, and poof, you have the key of life. Wow. That's like amazing, right? It's blows my mind anyway. That sounds like a plan to me, to be honest with you. DNA seems to be planned. Blah. All right. We were supposed to be going into Brave New World. We are at page 111. And then I think at the top of the hour we'll do some poker face. So I can make some coffee. If you want to call in, contact me at Solvinur via Skype. Solvinur. So let's get into this. This is about the Savage, and Lenina and Fanny are having a discussion. But doesn't he like you? Asked Fanny. Sometimes I think he does, and sometimes I think he doesn't. This is the last paragraph we read last week, I think. He always does his best to avoid me, goes out of the room when I come in, won't touch me, won't even look at me. But sometimes, if I turn round suddenly, I catch him staring, and then, well, you know how men look when they like you. Yes, Fanny knew. I can't make it out, said Lenina. She couldn't make it out, and not only was bewildered, was also rather upset. Because, you see, Fanny, I like him. Liked him more and more. Well, now there'd be a real chance, she thought, as she scented herself after her bath. Dab, dab, a real chance. Her high spirits overflowed in a song. Hug me till you drug me, honey. Kiss me till I'm in a coma. Hug me, honey, snuggly bunny. Love's as good as Soma. The scent organ was playing a delightful, refreshing herbal caprico. Hold on, guys. Something just came into my eye. Can't read like that. Here we go. Delightful, refreshing herbal capriccio. Rippling apricots of thyme and lavender, of rosemary, basil, myrtle, tarragon, a series of during modulations through the spice keys into ambergris, and a slow return through sandalwood, camphor, cedar, and new-mown hay, with occasional subtle touches of discord, a whiff of kidney pudding, the faintest suspicion of pig's dung, back to the simple aromatics with which the piece began. The final blast of thyme died away. There was a round of applause. The lights went up. In the synthetic music machine, the soundtrack roll began to unwind. It was a trio for a hyper violin, super cello, and oboe surrogate that now filled the air with its agreeable languor. 30 or 40 bars, and then, against this instrumental background, a much more than human voice began to warble. Now throaty, now from the head, now hollow as a flute, now charged with yearning harmonics, it effortlessly passed from Gaspard Foster's low record on the very frontiers of musical tone to a trilled bad note high above the highest C to which, in 1770, at the Ducal Opera of Parma, and to the astonishment of Mozart, Lucrezia Arguri, alone of the singers in history, once piercingly gave utterance. Sunk in their pneumatic stalls, Lenina and the Savage sniffed and listened. It was now the turn also for eyes and skin. The house lights went down. Fiery letters stood out solid as though self-supported in the darkness. 3 weeks in a helicopter. An all-super singing, synthetic talking, colored, stereoscopic feelie with synchronized scent organ accompaniment. Take hold of those metal knobs on the arms of your chair, whispered Lenina. Otherwise you won't get any of the feelie effects. The savage did as he was told. Those fiery letters, meanwhile, had disappeared. There were 10 seconds of complete darkness. Then, suddenly, dazzling and incomparably more solid-looking than they would have seemed in actual flesh and blood, far more real than reality, there stood the stereoscopic images, locked in one another's arms, of a gigantic Negro and a golden-haired young brachycephalic beta plus female. The savage started, that sensation on his lips. He lifted a hand to his mouth. The titillation ceased. Let his hand fall back on the metal knob. It began again. The scent organ, meanwhile, breathed pure musk. Expiringly, a soundtrack super dove cooed ooh-hoo, vibrating only 32 times a second. A deeper than African bass made answer, aha, ooh-hoo. The stereoscopic lips came together again, and once more the facial erogenous zones of the 6,000 spectators in the Alhambra tinkled with almost intolerable galvanic pleasure. The plot of the film was extremely simple. A few minutes of the first oohs and ahs, a duet having been sung, and a little love made on the famous bearskin, every hair of which the assistant predestinator was perfectly right, could be separated and distinctly felt. The Negro had a helicopter accident, fell on his head. Thump! What a twingle through the forehead! A chorus of ohs and ahs went up from the audience. The concussion knocked all the Negro's conditioning into a cocked hat. He developed for the beta blonde an exclusive and maniacal passion. She protested. He persisted. There were struggles, pursuits, an assault on a rival, finally a sensational kidnapping. The beta blonde was ravaged away into the sky and kept there, hovering, for 3 weeks, in a wildly antisocial tete-a-tete with the black madam. Finally, after a whole series of adventures and much aerial acrobacy, 3 handsome young alphas succeeded in rescuing her. The Negro was packed off to an adult reconditioning center, and the film ended happily and decorously, with the beta blonde becoming the mistress of all her 3 rescuers. They interrupted themselves for a moment to sing a synthetic quartet with full super orchestral accompaniment and Gardiner on the scent organ. Then the bearskin made a final appearance, and, amid a blare of saxophones, the last stereoscopic kiss faded into darkness. The last electrical titillation died on the lips like a dying moth that quivers, even more feebly, even more faintly, and at last is quiet. Quite still. But for Lenina the moth did not completely die. Even after the lights had gone up, while they were shuffling slowly along with the crowd towards the lift, its ghost still fluttered against her lips, still traced fine shuddering roads of anxiety and pleasure across her skin. Her cheeks were flushed. She caught hold of the savage arm and pressed it, limp, against her side. He looked down at her for a moment, pale, pained, desiring, and ashamed of his desire. He was not worthy. Their eyes for a moment met. What treasures hers promised! A queen's ransom of temperament. Hastily he looked away, disengaged his imprisoned arm. He was obscurely terrified lest she should cease to be something he could feel himself unworthy of. "I don't think you ought to see things like that," he said, making haste to transfer from Lenina herself to the surrounding circumstances the blame for any past or possible future lapse from protection. "Things like what, John?" "Like this horrible film." "Horrible?" Lenina was genuinely astonished. "But I thought it was lovely." "It was base," he said indignantly. "It was ignoble." She shook her head. "I don't know what you mean. Why was he so queer? Why did he go out of his way to spoil things?" In the taxicopter, he hardly even looked at her. Bound by strong vows that had never been pronounced, obedient to laws that he had long since ceased to run, he sat averted and in silence. Sometimes, as though a finger had plucked at some taut, almost breaking string, his whole body would shake with a sudden nervous start. The taxicopter landed on the roof of Lenina's apartment house. At last, she thought exultantly as she stepped out of the cab. At last, even though he had been so queer just now. Standing under a lamp, she peered into her hand mirror. At last, yes, her nose was a bit shiny. She shook the loose powder from her puff, while he was paying off the taxi. There would be just the time. She rubbed at the shininess, thinking, "He's terribly good-looking. No need for him to be shy like Bernard, and yet any other man would have done it long ago." Well, now at last. That fragment of a face in the little round mirror suddenly smiled at her. "Good night," said a strangled voice behind her. Lenina wheeled round. He was standing in the doorway of the cab, his eyes fixed, staring, had evidently been staring all the time while she was powdering her nose, waiting, but for what? Or hesitating, trying to make up his mind, and all the time thinking. She could not imagine what extraordinary thoughts. Good night, Lenina," he repeated, and made a strange, grimacing attempt to smile. "But John, I thought you were. I mean, aren't you?" He shut the door and bent forward to say something to the driver. The cab shot up into the air. Looking down through the window in the floor, the savage could see Lenina's upturned face, pale in the bluish lights of the lamps. The mouth was open. She was calling. Her foreshortened figure rushed away from him. The diminishing square of the roof seemed to be falling through the darkness. 5 minutes later, he was back in his room. From its hiding place, he took out his mouse-nibbled volume, turned with religious care its stained and crumpled pages and began to read Othello. Othello, he remembered, was like the hero of 3 weeks in a helicopter, a black man. Drying her eyes, Lenina walked across the roof to the lift. On her way down to the 27th floor, she pulled out her Soma bottle. 1 gram, she decided, would be enough. Hers had been more than 1 gram affliction, but if she took 2 grams, she ran the risk of not waking up at time tomorrow morning. She compromised and, in her coupled left palm, shook out 3 half-gram tablets. And that's the end of 11. So we can go on to E12. If this lighter works, there we go. Ah, blah, blah. 12. Bernard had to shout through the locked door. The savage would not open. But everybody's there, waiting for you. Let them wait, came back the muffled voice through the door. But you know quite well, John, how difficult it is to sound persuasive at the top of one's voice. I asked them on purpose to meet you. You ought to have asked me first whether I wanted to meet them. But you always came before, John. That's precisely why I don't want to come again. Just to please me, Bernard bellowingly wheedled. Won't you come to please me? No. Do you seriously mean it? Yes. Despairingly. But what shall I do? Bernard wailed. Go to hell, bawled the exasperated voice from within. But the Arch-Community Songsters of Canterbury is there tonight. Bernard was almost in tears. Ayatakwa! It was only in Zuni that the savage could adequately express what he felt about the Arch-Community Songsters. Hani, he added as an afterthought, and then, with what derisive ferocity, Sons eso tsena, and he spat on the ground, as Pope might have done. In the end, Bernard had to slink back, diminished, to his rooms and inform the impatient assembly that the savage would not be appearing that evening. The news was received with indignations. The men were furious at having been tricked into behaving politely to this insignificant fellow with the unsavory reputation and the heretical opinions. The higher their position in hierarchy, the deeper their resentment. To play such a joke on me, the arch-songster kept repeating, on me. As for the women, they indignantly felt that they had been had on a false pretense, had been wretched by a wretched little man who had alcohol poured into his bottle by mistake, by a creature with a gamma- physique. It was an outrage, and they said so, more and more loudly. The headmistress of Eton was particularly scathing. Lenina alone said nothing. Pale, her blue eyes clouded with an unwanted melancholy, she sat in a corner, cut off from those who surrounded her by an emotion which they did not share. She had come to the party filled with a strange feeling of anxious exaltation. In a few minutes, she had said to herself, as she entered the room, I shall be seeing him, talking to him, telling him, for she had come with her mind made up. That I like him, more than anybody I've ever known. And then perhaps he'll say... What would he say? The blood had rushed to her cheeks. Why was he so strange the other night, after the feelies? So queer, and yet I'm absolutely sure he really does rather like me. I'm sure. It was at this moment that Bernard had made his announcement. The savage wasn't coming to the party. Lenina suddenly felt all the sensations normally experienced at the beginning of a violent passion surrogate treatment. A sense of dreadful emptiness, a breathless apprehension, a nausea. Her heart seemed to stop beating. Perhaps it's because he doesn't like me, she said to herself, and at once this possibility became an established certainty. John had refused to come because he didn't like her. It's really a bit too thick, the headmistress of Eton was saying to the director of crematory and phosphorus reclamation, when I think that I actually... Yes, came the voice of Fanny Crown, it's absolutely true about the alcohol. Someone I know knew someone who was working in the embryo store at the time. She said to my friend, and my friend said to me. Too bad, said Henry Foster, sympathizing with the arch-community songster. It may interest you to know that our ex-director was on the point of transferring him to Iceland. Pierced by every word that was spoken, the tight balloon of Bernard's happy self-confidence was leaking from 1,000 wounds. Pale, distraught, abject and agitated, he moved among his guests, stammering incoherent apologies, assuring them the next time the savage would certainly be there, begging them to sit down and take a carotene sandwich, a slice of vitamin A pâté, a glass of champagne surrogate. They duly ate, but ignored him, drank, and were either rude to his face or talked to one another about him, loudly and offensively, as though he had not been there. And now, my friends, said the arch-community songster of Canterbury, in that beautiful ringing voice with which he led the proceedings at Fourth Day celebrations, now, my friends, I think perhaps the time has come. He rose, put down his glass, brushed from his purple viscose waistcoat the crumbs of a considerable collation, and walked towards the door. Bernard darted forward to intercept him. Must you really, arch-songster? It's very early still. I'd hoped you would... Yes. What hadn't he hoped when Lenina confidentially told him that the arch-community songster would accept an invitation if it were sent? He's really rather sweet, you know, and she had shown Bernard the little golden zipper fastening in the form of a T which the arch-songster had given her as a memento of the weekend she had spent at Lambeth. To meet the arch-community songster of Canterbury and Mr. Savage, Bernard had proclaimed his triumph on every invitation card, but the savage had chosen this evening of all evenings to lock himself up in his room, to shout "Hani," and even, it was lucky that Bernard didn't understand Zuni, "Sons eso tsena." What should have been the crowning moment of Bernard's whole career had turned out to be the moment of his greatest humiliation. Alright guys, so if you've been listening the last hour, you will have noticed that there are no ads. So go to ucy.tv, scroll to the bottom, there's a donate button there, see if you can use that. We're gonna do some poker face. I don't know for how long, but this is 2013. In other words, Freedom Palooza 3. And I'm probably gonna have to adjust the volume and hope that everything goes okay. So, here we go. Hold on, guys.
Do not wish this life to pass away. Life presents us possibilities each and every day. Only that was right for me. I pray for strength for what's ahead of me. Show me the way. Shouldn't before me was my enemy. Come to take away my liberties. I'd rather die than be a slave to thee. Don't treat me this way. I'd rather die than be a slave. I'll survive. Did you feel my ring? Try to question. Didn't matter who shot first that day. They killed my brothers, they lay dead by me. We hit the mark, we made them pay that day. We hung the traitors from the highest trees. Lost a lot, our pain was heavy. We sacrificed for God and country. To held the ground that was in front of me. There's a path that paid for liberty. So keep me safe. Repeat history. Our choice will change while man has stayed the same. Time of families roll out of me. I will not let them rape my liberty. Save me, save.
Pokerface.com. Check these people out at pokerface.com. Welcome back, everybody. This is ucy.tv. I am your host, Walter, coming to you from Holland. Check out the website, ucy.tv. You can also check out reallibertymedia.com for more channels. It's 5:06 p.m. in the Netherlands, 11:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And somebody Skyped me, wanted to come on. It's the famous Mr. Easley. Good day, sir. Say something. All right, you got yourself muted again, or what?
Yeah. Of course, the phone rings right when I go in there. People show up at my door.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well,
unusual. I just hung up on them. So,
ah,
anyways, my computer is running on syrup today, or
Okay.
honey. I think I'm okay, and I hope this fan in the background's not making too much noise. I put it on the.
no, it's fine.
Thanks, Dan B. Cooper, for that link. I've got CC Cleaner, but every time I clean this thing, I lose all my passwords and all that stuff. So I'll have to determine if I'm ready to go through reloading everything when I clean it. But it just wipes everything.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, I was listening. Now I'm getting a message from Skype. I wonder when I started doing that stuff. They keep sending me messages. But anyways, I was listening to you talk on evolution, and I kept losing my audio, and it kept kicking me out on a couple of places. But I've posted all my links here, except for ucy.tv and Real Liberty Media, plus the where I'm admin over there, where I've got you set for notification for the broadcast here.
Yeah, thanks for that, man.
Yeah, I enjoy your work. So I was reflecting. I spoke with Grimmer some last night, and these last few weeks, stepped out and not doing the assistant producing for Kira on the bridge and Chris on Voice of Rebellion. Generally in the afternoon here, it gets too hot to even be inside. But anyways, these last few weeks, I've been doing this and that, and I hadn't gone to church in several years, probably about the time that I started following you. And so I'd gone back and kind of re-examined everything that I had supposed to be. And these last few weeks going to church and visiting, it's a whole lot different. I hear all of the logical fallacies, the appeal to authority. And for me, just going on faith is kind of a cop-out. I was listening about evolution. Now, I guess there's only two choices. There's evolution or creation.
No, I don't think there's only two choices.
Let me qualify that. With evolution, there's several different ideas on that from panspermia. But regardless, when you go back to the very beginning, either or, there is evolution or creation. You either have a primordial egg, the primordial atom, or you have God that exists outside of creation.
Well, hold on a minute. This primordial egg and God are very much linked together in all the ancient mythologies that are out there. Just Google it. Egg is a very much used metaphor in ancient history when it comes to the creation of the universe.
Okay, let's take it back then to the primordial egg or the primordial atom. Science says in the beginning there was nothing, and nothing exploded and created everything.
Yeah, that's impossible. All right, Something does not come from nothing. that doesn't seem to make any sense.
Right. There has to had been a source outside of the existence that we know. And I'm also confused for saying a multi-dimensional universe or a multiverse, but for me, I think there's a universe of universes. It's not really a multiverse, if that makes any sense.
Well, according to the Vedas, there are many universes. This is just one. And apparently this is a small one. Well, anyway, go ahead, sorry.
Yep, this universe is infinite. But
one would think so, yeah.
Well, from what we can observe. And, I've looked at a lot of other things that brings the ear and criticism of others when looking at the flat Earth. I'm not saying the Earth is flat, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it is. All right. Science is a faith in itself. It's full of lies. To say, well, there are some laws of science that's beyond faith. I mean, you can see entropy. Nothing ever progresses. We're in a de-evolution if anything. There's never any species. There's no dats or cogs. Species are species. Even when one might suppose there's intermingling, that it is still species specific. Like dogs, all the dogs have a common ancestor. Then one might debate whether man and the ape are related. I mean, we see similarities, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there is relation in the species. To if you were to interbreed or whatever, I don't guess an ape and a man could intermingle. Like a jellyfish, I mean, we share almost entirely the same DNA, even as that, and the similarities of what makes up life. There's obviously a common
building block.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. But science says that evolution cannot occur in itself. That with the nothing being able to be a creator destroyed, but you go to a heat loss. Eventually, we got a notification. I lost my thought. I get easily distracted. Hey, I put a penny in there. Okay, let me try to not be distracted here. I'm gonna head back into chat. So that was from Dorsey, an artist. That's our good friend Ozzy Skateboard. I believe they're an item. Ozzy, you'll hear his intro here at UCY.tv, and he did a lot of work for a lot of folks, creating their intro for him back in the early days of UCY.tv. Coming up on 4 years here, August, I think 19th, somewhere in there. But anyways, 4 years of UCY.tv. Jules has done a fantastic job, and we got a lot of great folks over here that enjoy the chat. Diverse ideas. I certainly don't agree with everything there, nor does most people probably agree with me. I don't like to use the word Christian, but there's a lot of information in the Bible. But I said last night that I think the time, religion has had its time, okay? It's time to put that stuff aside and realize the commonality in it. And I'm not some advocate for religion or whatever, but that there is a common theme that we can find, and that's what is right. And I'll try to channel Hal here just a little bit, but right is that for me, what is right is a Muslim in the definition of seeking the will of God. So to do wrong is not being right, and to not oppose wrong is not being right. So when you see a wrong and you do not try to right that wrong, in a sense, then that is sin. So that's kind of my...
Wait a minute. If you see a wrong and you don't do something about it, that's a sin?
I would say, yeah. What if you were seeing
how come somebody else's behavior can force me to compel to some action? This doesn't make sense to me.
It's like lying by omission, right?
Well, that's a whole different story. Lying by omission is known as forgotten concept, something like that.
Well, not stopping a wrong is the omission of right.
Yeah, but who says it's your job to make sure things go right?
I think we all have a duty. I'm not trying to
Yeah,
say
for
it.
your own actions, but not for somebody else's.
I mean, if you saw somebody raping a woman and you didn't intervene, then you're just as guilty.
I would probably intervene, yes. But that's based on my own decision, not because somebody forces me to act.
No, you would have to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, that's my decision, yeah.
The lack
So,
of
but it's not that somebody can force me to act because they do something evil. That doesn't make sense, right?
well, to me it does. The lack of doing right is in itself is doing wrong.
Yeah, but it's like you. In fact, you are more or less talking about natural law, correct?
Yeah, and Hal would even have some words to say on that. Natural law. All these definitions are really sometimes hard to pin down. And well, thanks to you, I mostly question myself more than anything else. So natural law is sometimes confused with law of the jungle, whereas natural law, for me and you, I think would mean, good morning, Grammy, would mean that which is obvious, self-evident, unalienable rights.
Yeah.
And doesn't give us the right. You know, it's just it expresses that. It's a concept that
I understand. We both come from a what is it? Principle of nonviolence, right?
Right.
Right.
But
so,
not,
can you force your views and my view? I stand with you in this case. But can you force that on somebody else?
No,
of course not.
That is free will and that right to self-determination. That's why I say God is an anarchist.
Yeah.
Our rules, okay? And I was saying again last night that anarchy is that this term anarchist is confused. I would say more by people that claim to be anarchists than others that I don't know if that's true or not. But most people see anarchy as chaos.
No, but listen, let's get back to where we started. You said if you see evil and you don't do something about it, you're doing sin, right? And you mentioned the example of you see a guy raping a girl, and we both agreed we would intervene, right?
Yeah.
But what if a 18-year-old girl sees this happen, and she's afraid to go up to the guy before she rapes herself, right?
Well,
Now,
intervening.
is she committing a sin because she doesn't act? I don't think so.
Well, intervening physically is not necessarily the same as perhaps she would cry out for help, ask somebody for help in that situation. But if she was
if there's nobody there, it's in a dark alley or whatever. The best thing to do for her is to run away. That's also natural law. If
yes,
I'm not mistaken.
But if she ran away, maybe she didn't know what to do. I'm not saying that would necessitate that being that inaction being a sin, but she would, with sound mind, have a duty to tell somebody we need help.
Yeah, she probably will. The first person she meets. Yeah, that's natural, right?
Yeah. So voluntarist, Grammy. All these definitions and stuff are, sometimes a bit convoluted, and we all have a little different idea of what it is. But this what is for me is self-evident, and a person only has accountability for what they know. If you didn't know that it was wrong, maybe you grew up in a society of cavemen, and that's knocked in the head and drugged by the hair, and that's how someone was married. So would it be wrong then? So to a point, we have accountability to what we know only.
Yeah. I don't think you can compare the two. I think our moral duties, so to speak, are much different. because of the circumstances have completely changed.
Right. And I do think there is our conscience is built in.
Yeah.
It may be that the further people go from what is right, the easier it is to accept wrong. But I
Sorry,
think
what? I didn't understand that.
okay, the further somebody went from doing what is right and making that a part of them, the further you go away from what is right, then
Yeah.
It's harder to see. Distance, right? Illumination of the light. And I'm not trying to be Illuminati or whatever here, but
Yeah.
sometimes words are words, and we really need to check ourselves more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. So, but did you just say the further you go away from the light, so to speak, the more evil you become?
Well, the further you would depart from what is right, and I would say there would be a point where that light would no longer reach you, and you'd be in the outer darkness.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a bit too harsh on the people that, I've never been in contact with anybody that would dare call themselves awake. These people have been so misinformed that you can't blame them for their actions, right? You don't blame a beaten down cow that he can't stand on its legs. You understand?
Right. Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. But there are people that I think reach a point that they are beyond redemption. Evil people, and the government's full of them.
Sure.
I would say Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have departed beyond the light.
Sure.
No matter the face they put on.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'd say that sometimes, I think that's for a lot of people indeed, the identification with what they are, like for instance, I'm a dentist or I'm a teacher or whatever, the role that they play, they identify with it so much that they cannot envision a different reality. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think in part that's good.
Yeah.
I'm rolling a smoke. What?
So, but the reason why you called in was about evolution.
Uh-huh.
And you said that it's either creation or evolution, and there's no third option?
Sure, that I don't see a third option.
You don't?
No, you see variation among species, like the finches. The Galapagos Islands is supposed to be the holy ground of the Darwinists. But a finch is a finch.
All right, so but let me ask you this. We both agreed a couple of minutes ago that the universe seems to be infinite.
Yes.
Yes? If it's infinite, then there is no beginning and no end. And that means that there hasn't been created.
Well, yeah, I might have to work a little bit on my definition. That point that some people might describe as the Big Bang.
Yeah.
Yes, but if let argue the point here. If you couldn't go to the beginning, you can't go to the end because it's continually creation is in continuation. But with the laws of second law of thermodynamics, eventually it's going to reach a heat loss, and everything will be in equilibrium, be dead.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, at least with our current abilities, there's no way we could reach the end or the beginning. So in that sense, I would say it is infinite.
Yeah. Okay.
And
This sounds a bit like a story I heard from Vedas about creation. And they say that universes come pouring out of the pores of the skin of God that is lying inside a ocean. And at a certain point, it's like a breathing, right? Your skin breathes also, right? It's going in and it's going out. And so they claim that at a certain point, when one going out breath, which is a universe created, is ended, he starts breathing in, and then the universe will be destroyed, right? But at the same time, they will claim that, well, this is just one breath, and he lives forever, thus, the universe is eternal. It never ends.
What we're talking about here is, observation and perspective, and trying to put into words that which is observable to sense.
Yeah.
So, and let me go back to my premise of saying religion has had its time, and I don't care if my brother would call me a pagan, and others might call me apostate or whatever, but I think it goes well beyond arguing the name of God or defining him or trying to put him in a box that would obviously be outside our capability. So we need to, in my opinion, look at that which is similar, and I'll go back to that which is right. So I think our journey towards that, because obviously none of us are without sin. Right? We've all done wrong. When does a newborn babe become accountable? At what age? That's debatable too. But is a newborn babe born with this propensity to sin? I would say eventually, yeah. Just for instance, Lord of the Flies. That's a pretty good analogy of the characteristic of man. There is that, and it all comes by choice. Even though that choice is made to do wrong, there is still a voice that might grow silent the more and more you depart from that. But there is an inner voice that that tells us that something that one might do is wrong.
And like I said in the first hour, we all have a moral compass, right? Yeah.
But evolution, as far as I'm concerned, from all the study I've done, it's an impossibility. There's no chance of upward progression. There's no new species that can come about from another species. You can't go from the that single cell amoeba to man. It's scientifically impossible. You cannot get new information from something. And I've used this example before, and I've borrowed it from someone else from many years ago in reading. But if you take a copy of a document, you copy that on the old, photocopiers, and copy the copy, and copy the copy of the copy, and so on. Eventually, there's not enough information to have anything there. So at some point in time, we will breed ourselves out of existence. We will degrade. Now, we're in a time of science right now where man wants to be God himself, and this goes back to the beginning of the great controversy that I would call between God and the devil, just using generic terms. But eventually, everything will die out here, and I think, my opinion is that we are judging God ourselves, and as we judge God, we judge ourselves in the same manner.
And can I ask you which God, or is that too difficult?
This will bring some crap on me from some people, but the God that I recognize, probably because that's what I was born into, is the God of the Bible. I'm very well aware of all the that which has been subtracted, how it has been co-opted by this group of folks that's been around since the beginning of time, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, now it's no problem. But can you then explain to me the difference in behavior from this God of the Bible in the the Old Testament and the New Testament? Why is there such a big difference?
Well, because that is, in my opinion, that is man taking and writing down their interpretation, adding to, subtracting from. So this logical fallacy that the Bible is the Word of God is that's used for control. Obviously, that would not be complete. Because you
Okay,
cannot,
but do you understand that I'm like seeing two different gods here? Like the God of the Old Testament, who's rather warlike, but like Krishna, who's also warlike, and the
Yeah.
God of the New Testament, who's rather forgiving, right? So do you see that I kind of like see two gods there?
yeah, and that might be better described in dispensationalism. That would be these after the fall of man. Man says, we can do it, and this is the controversy. Is God right? God says, do no wrong, or is that who opposes that the devil? And I'm using these terms generically, and
Yes, no problem.
says, do as thou will. Okay.
Yeah, it depends on your will, right? If your will is focused on the good, then what's wrong with do as thou wilt?
Well, if you're doing what's right, I guess it's okay. But if
All right.
it is, I will do as I will kill, steal, and destroy, then that is against what is self-evident to me. If that would, which is obviously wrong.
Yeah, that's against natural law, we would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but which God then should I refer to when I'm talking about your God? That's the Old Testament, or is it the New Testament?
I would say it is the God spoken of Jesus Christ.
The God spoken of by Jesus Christ.
His Father who art in heaven.
Okay.
But
That's
you
fine.
a lot of
Have you?
split hairs.
No, that's okay. Have you ever researched the stories about Christmas? And
Oh, yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
3 days between the resurrection.
Sure, and
And
I would
the-
do that as this commonality. You see all these numbers, and you're just now starting to looking at grammatica, or however you say that word, and numbers and stuff. Grammateria, how do you pronounce that?
I think it's called gematria, but I know it as Kabbalism,
Okay.
which is Jewish.
Well, it appears that the Hebrew language and the English language are unique in a sense that they're very, and I guess there's some others, but they are very specific in coding and in spelling. Clint Richardson and doggone Pat, his guest, frequent guest. Of course, they've been coming over on Sundays and filling in with Shali for Co-Rally Radio.
Yeah.
They speak on that. It's almost like a control system. The Bible is used for
Okay. So did you miss last week's, I think? He spoke about sin a lot. Did you miss all that?
I can't remember if I listened last week or not.
Because you should. He talks about sin as something completely different. You used the word sin a couple of times 20 minutes ago also. People are sinful, right? But it's... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't know, sorry Clint, but it may just be a little lack of understanding on my part, but there seems to be a lot of stretching in words and how they, from sin, S-Y-N to S-I-N, sin, syntax and all that. Then, you really got to go back to the very basics and the beginnings of your grammar.
Oops. Yeah. Yeah. I'd advise you also, like I did, as far as I could anyway, with the Vedas, to get a word-for-word translation. I don't know if you remember me ever reading from it, but sometimes I gave you the word-for-word translation. It comes up way different sometimes,
Right.
So if you could get the Jewish version, would probably be best. And then again, it looks like the Jewish version was copied from a Latin version. I'm not quite sure about that, but I think the Latin people got it from Egypt. Most of the stories in the Bible, anyway, they are like a compilation of older myths.
I was going to say all these common stories to me. There's a interpretation by man at any point in time in history, but there is commonality that's a common theme, and for me, it just tells that this original story is preserved in part, at least, and it can be found in many different places. But I think it would all point back to a common origin, right? So. To say that Christianity took these ideas from Egypt is to say that true Islam takes all its information from the founding by the Catholic Church. But,
well, no, not really, because both are Abrahamic religions.
Yes. So as I was going to say, though, the Islam that is preached of hate and stuff is a co-opting of what a Muslim might describe their religion that goes back to that time. So we have that split at that time between these two brothers. That one that became the father of the Arabs, and so forth. Not necessarily all Arabs, but you know what I'm saying. Those people in that parts of the world. But if it wasn't for people controlling and directing history, what religions would exist in that part of the world? The Catholic Church, they brought in. There was a split in the 3rd century, was it, with Constantine, between the church and what survived, what dominated, it came out of that was the papacy, and that is obviously tied into paganism, very very obvious. And they persecuted those that were a different mindset of Christianity. To combat that, they established a religion. I would say a co-opting of Islam. So if you go back, we'll keep going back. They'll all converge to a certain point. Yeah, right, Hawk. Islam, in the true sense, existed before Catholicism, yes. But the religion, faith and religion, if I can use both generically, are not the same thing.
Faith and religion are not the same thing. I would agree with that. And I also would agree with your conclusion that all of these stories are alike because they come from the same source. That seems to be the logical explanation. But it has far-reaching consequences for your worldview if you adopt that vision. If you adopt this idea. Sorry, what?
This blind faith to me is very dangerous.
Yes, it is. Especially when people act on it.
Yes.
Excuse me.
That's a big problem, and that there's a technique in for converting somebody, I guess you might say, and generally, if you start with the premise that do you accept the Bible as the Word of God? Okay, well, right there you start with the logical fallacy of appeal to authority.
Yeah.
Any true study will show that the Bible is not the complete Word of God. Like I said, religion is taking control. They've taken and away and added to.
Yeah.
So
it's been hijacked.
So theme that one might find in Christianity, if you'll put aside that which is preached from the pulpit as an authority, because let's just take it back to the Jew. Is the Jew a race or a religion? Because these Zionists, these Jews left Palestine black and came back white. So I don't say these Zionists are Jews. I think they're fake Jews. They've used this. Go back into the 1800s, and they were setting up for what we have right now. Very slow and incremental. It generations to set this up.
Did you hear again that same guy we were talking about last time about sin? Richard, I think his name is Clint Richardson. I think it's him. He also talked about the word Jew. Did you hear that?
I'm not recalling everything, but I was listening.
Well, that's no problem. Anyway, I did my own research in the origins of the word Jew in Dutch. It sounds a bit like in English we say Jood. And in fact, it came. What the etymological dictionary tells me is that it came in the first use as a swear word. You know, you would call somebody a Jew, you would have negative connotations with that. That's how it got into our language. And then I found out that Bach and Wagner, both, in my opinion, highly intelligent people, were writing things like, don't go to a synagogue or keep away from a synagogue because it's a den of evil.
Yeah,
right? And then, sorry, what?
Synagogue of Satan is what Jesus called it.
Uh-huh. You know, and then I found this out because at the Dutch radio, which I have on sometimes in the morning when I go to work, they mentioned that, and they gave a ad hominem attack at Bach. You know, how could he say such a thing, right? Instead of asking why would he write such a thing, instead of addressing his argument, they just throw an ad hominem at Bach. You know, it's like, wow, how dare you?
I think Otto answered my question pretty good. The Jew isn't a race or a religion; it's a profession. I think I've never considered it that way, but I think that's actually perfect, Otto.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and there's also, you know, the letter J. I don't think it exists in Jewish alphabet.
Yahweh.
500 years ago or something.
Yeah, probably a lot longer than that. Originally, you know, you were not to speak. There's so many seemingly contradictions.
Yeah.
When Moses was in Egypt. I'm making sure I'm not making a mistake here. He says, Pharaoh says, what's the name of your God? And he says, I am that I am, without name. And they say well, I hate to use these words, Jew, say, you know, they were not allowed to pronounce the name of God. And then there's these other sects, especially in Christianity, which are called Yahwehs. There's others, but, you know, claim that unless you know the name of God, then, you know, you can't be saved. All these prerequisites and so forth, all these little classifications that qualify you to be a child of God. For me, it is doing what is right. Now, I don't always do what's right. I've done a lot of bad things in life, but for me, there is... I don't know how to even say it, but there's a forgiveness, you know, and repenting is going back to what is right, or returning to God, which is what is right. So, yeah, it's not a one-time event. It's day to day, minute to minute. You know, you make your choices every moment of every day.
Yeah.
So, as you are traveling this path, you can walk towards, or you can. Veer away in your walk, and you can turn around and walk the other way. You know, when did Hillary Clinton become that evil witch? You know, her and Bubba have been involved in the death of many, many people. I mean, not just counting personal murders, but I mean, look at the murders they've committed in our name. And I say our name, I say Americans. And Americans, hey, Cracker, Americans... We're not United Statesians. That's the United States, of course, is the corporation, and some people say, what's wrong with that? That's just a way of doing business. Well, the idea of this government has gone, it is, to me, it compares to that controversy between God and the devil, that being governed or government representing people, the people, and sorry for the use of these words that are not correct in the truest sense, but then you have religion as the same as government. And Mark and Rose, of course, calls government the greatest superstition, and it is a religion. Just look at the Bar Association and the judges that are priests that sit in their black dresses in judgment. The same as the Pope, the so-called Vicar of Christ, that is able to supposedly give absolution of sins, him being the representative of Christ on earth. So everything's so convoluted, and being able to work through this and discuss it, and like I said about myself, question more what it is I think I know more than anything else.
So, but you skipped over a thing in philosophy called the problem of evil.
Yes, this is me, Grimner. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Tell me that again.
I think you skipped over a point which in philosophy is called the problem of evil. You mentioned God and the devil, right? Mm-hmm. So, but if your definition of God includes that he's all good, how come there's evil?
Well, let's look at it like this, and I'm going to go back, and of course, a lot of this is influence. My thinking has influenced, as does us all, into my religiosity and my idea that there was a point in time of creation, about the time that this universe was created and this world was created. There'd been a bit of a debate. Is God right, or does thou will?
Is God right, or what?
Or is the devil right? Do we do as we will, or do the will of God?
Isn't the devil created by God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was, according to the Bible, he was the Most High. He was the cherubim that sat next to him, one of these high angels. And in his pride, he says, I should be the Most High. I should, sit here. And so he started this discussion, I guess it might have started as, with the angels, and saying, hey, I don't think God's right. I think we ought to be able to do what we want to.
So in God's kingdom, you can't do what you want to? Is that what I'm supposed to?
You're not to do what is not right.
Yeah, but that's here also. So what's the point?
Don't confuse doing what thou will and doing your will as opposed to the will of God. The will of God is what is right. I know
but if he says that in heaven, where he's at that moment, you can't do as you will, right? Then what's the use of creating this material universe where you also can't do as you will? What's the sense in that?
Let me back up just a little bit. So this debate's going on, this controversy, right? So if begging the question, if God is God and God is right, then had God destroyed this rebellion, then the creation of God would serve out of fear and not out of a choice and love. And serve, that's another word, serve. Because to serve is not a bad word. People would connotate that to being a negative. To do good for somebody else, to something like that. That's good, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, let me just try to nail this down a little bit. About this time, this controversy, there's war in heaven, the devil's cast down. He's like, okay, if you're right, then you won't have any problem with me going down here to earth, your crown of creation, and Adam and Eve, and saying, hey, look, God, he wants to keep you in the dark. He didn't want you to know good from evil. There was an innocence in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Sin is the opposition to God. Okay, so opposition of what is right. So he came down here and he persuaded Eve to disobey.
Yeah, so
one.
Adam and Eve were sinless because they had no clue what sin was, right? They
Yeah.
couldn't distinguish good from evil, supposedly.
Yeah, and the devil says, God doesn't want you to know the difference
Yeah.
of good from evil. He wants to keep you as his servants. Okay, another little definition, altered definition of servant. Servant as a slave, in a sense. That's what God, or the devil, accusing God of. So when they disobeyed, then they were outside the will of God, and God said, on that day that you eat of this fruit of the knowledge between good and evil, then you shall surely die.
Yeah.
And so we go back into syntax and grammar and all this, but not that you will die on that day, but in that day that you commit it, then death entered in, and that is a result of sin, being outside the will of God. To be inside the will of God, you would exist in that perfect harmony, and I think eventually we will, in judging God, we will say, yeah, God, you're right. And it will end this controversy, and then this world will be made anew, and the entirety of creation, and no matter how many universes or whatever else they're called, then eternity will be in harmony, and evil and sin will be done away with, because not because we're robots, but because we will every creation will have put to rest this idea: is the devil right or is God right? So to do wrong or to do right. And no more will it ever be any temptation to, because it will have been made all this time of Earth's history. Some and myself would say that isn't time enough. Grimner says what the meteor, great big meteor, extinction meteor, I forget exactly what it calls, but yeah. A lot of people that are non-religious say, this is bullshit and it's time to wipe it out, and basically that's what I see coming. And those that are found righteous to be resurrected. I think when you die, you're dead. You're dead in the ground. And this could be argued with the laws of science of energy being neither created nor destroyed, but used. Less available for use, okay, eventually the heat death. But
So you think when you die, you actually die?
certainly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a stunning fact.
Christianity teaches a soul, a spirit, and a body.
Yeah.
And wrong. Go back to the grammar. If you believe in the Bible says that God took the dust of the earth, basically, as a potter, and molded man, and he breathed the breath of life into man.
Yeah.
Ruach. He became a living soul, a living being. So
Yeah.
we don't have. Well, yeah. The soul is the life. A cow is a soul. A man is a soul. And when you die, you go in the reverse process. So the breath of life, the ruach, returns back to its source, God, and then you're dead. So you're given a chance in life, and when you're dead, you're dead, and that's where the Bible says.
So there's no heaven or hell.
There's the hell isn't what is described by the pulpit.
That isn't that a hallmark of Christian religion, that you either go to hell or heaven?
Yeah.
How can you go to heaven if you're dead?
Well, that would be after the resurrection.
After the resurrection. Oh,
at the end of the age, at the end of the world, when all this is come to having been judging God.
What if you were burned to ash?
Then you're gone away. If you're resurrected among the unrighteous and judged, you'll come back to life for your judgment and then be destroyed completely. The devil himself destroyed. Says in the Old Testament that his ashes just be trodden underfoot. So what kind of evil fuck would this be of a God that would create some life and then say, you didn't say my name right, you're gonna burn in hell forever? What if somebody in some circumstance commits suicide at a young age, and are they going to be burning in hell forever because, man, they just couldn't take life? That would be an evil God, wouldn't it? That's not a God that I would serve.
Mm-hmm.
So hell is a big word that is not used right. Hell is the true translation is the ground, or the pit, the grave.
Okay.
The lake of fire is not hell, okay? So sin and death will be cast into the lake of fire along with the devil and his angels. That's what the Bible says. It doesn't say they're burned and burned and burned and burned and burned and burned. Forever and ever means until it's done. So without knowing the grammar of the language of the day and trying to interpret into our modern understanding of words, that's a fallacy. That is why the trivium is so important. This project I'm working on for my brother, it's a little thing that says we need to, I'll paraphrase, we need to study the scientific facts. Well, that's being taught what to think and not how to think. It's the opposite of the trivium, and that's what the devil would have you to do. He wants you to believe what he tells you, and don't think it out for yourself. God says, choose this day. That means figure it out. Let us reason together. That's what Jesus said, right? I sound like a preacher.
Yeah, that's what Logan Hawk says.
I'm a new kind of preacher, brother. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, I must confess that I'm a little bit stunned by your religiousness.
Religiosity.
Religiosity, okay.
I don't know what to call it. But I'm not religious.
Well, I think you can not deny that after your explanation of resurrection, things like that.
Well, you're not going to find too many people saying the same thing I'm saying.
No, probably not.
Even amongst those that the congregation that the church that I've been a member of.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, they might kick me out if I was to speak openly in church on the things. Well, Walter, I appreciate it. We're coming up to the end.
Yep.
And appreciate everybody. I, of course, stumble along trying to formulate these ideas and bring them out of my mouth. But that's important that we continue a discussion.
Sure. Thanks a lot for calling in, buddy.
Thank you, brother.
Take care. See you next time. Thanks everybody in the chat room at juicy.tv. Captain Gringo, Cracker, Dan, Grammy Mary, Grump, Hopper B, JJ, Lone Frog, Joe Friday, Logan Hogg, Otto von Bill, Swing, and surely you just. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Check out the website juicy.tv and reallibertymedia.com.
I think a new world
I'll
order is
see you
emerging.
guys next week. Take care, everybody.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
You are listening to UCY.tv. Why don't you stick around for more awesome